Out of all of the members of the Yotei 6, it's the Snake. Atsu's first kill after returning to the island of Ezo, who stands out the least. He's barely on screen, there's almost nothing known about him, and he's gone before the main story even begins. Unlike the other characters where you're establishing a foothold, meeting allies, and understanding that main target's reign over that entire region, Atsu just immediately faces the Snake head on. But that's exactly why I thought it was best to start with him. Because for someone so quickly killed off, his death still manages to shape everything that follows. In some ways, it's arguably more important than any other death because he's the one that directly gives birth to the idea of her being an onyro. The Snake was the last of the Yotei 6 to face Atsu before they all turned their backs and left her to die. That alone could explain why he became her first target upon returning to Ezo, but more likely, it's because he was stationed over the grasslands, the very region where Atsu's childhood home once stood. Perhaps it was fate, or maybe it was just a cruel coincidence. The first man she'd kill on her path back home also happened to roll over the ashes of where her life ended 16 years ago. Looking back, the Snake ends up being much more important to Atsu than it might seem as well. During their fight, he'd come to initiate a headbutt, sending her into a vivid flashback of that day that can easily feel like a lifetime ago, where he dragged her through the dirt back to the burning tree where she would be pinned. In that memory, she screams that she's not afraid of him. But her actions, upon reflection, say otherwise. She chose to confront him while he was drunk, a calculated move that hints at something that vision lets known. She's fearful and angry. She wasn't just facing a man that night, she was confronting the monster who destroyed her family. And even after 16 years of brutal warfare across the mainland of Japan, some ghosts still make you feel like that powerless child all over again.
Who are you? Little wolf.
Based off his interactions within the flashbacks and the information we can put together from the other Yotei 6 members, particularly their loyalty to Lord Saito and their positions on Ezo, the Snake does stand out. Where all members did have a strong sense of loyalty to their lord, he was the one that appeared to lack the same ambition and vision as the other members did. And that could very well be from his own painful past and how he fell in with Lord Saito to begin with. Born under the name Yukiharu, old records of Clan Saito's describe a boy who was born to a sickness, one so detrimental that he should have died in infancy, with his life expectancy to be no longer than the age of 6 months old. However, as luck would have it, he would manage to survive this appallingly low survival outlook, albeit in immense pain. Again, there's no official diagnosis on what his ailment exactly was, but considering the diseases that were well known at the time to have a high infancy mortality rate along with the chronic impact on the snake's body, it could have been anything from beriberi, a form of tuberculosis, or smallpox. There doesn't appear to be any scarring or telltale signs of smallpox being the culprit, so I highly doubt it's the cause of whatever afflicts him. Either way, his poor upbringing combined with his equally poor health would lead his family to the difficult conclusion of selling him off to Clan Saito to work in his fields. Even as Yukiharu grew in adolescence, this work would prove to be quite challenging for him as he continued to struggle with his poor health. Crippled by his body's constant state of pain, surrounded by people who were more physically healthy, in an environment where strength and the power of a sword demanded attention, Yukiharu would still find a way to amazingly adapt. Rather than lean on the norms of physical strength to reach the top, he relied more on perfecting the things that he said, coming to believe that the right thing said takes you further than a blade, further enforcing this very notion with the sayings of a thought overheard can spread hope or strife, and a curated word builds armies. His silver tongue would come to be the very thing that would gain Lord Saito's attention and ultimate favor. The boy, overlooked since the days of his childhood as sickly and incapable of anything useful, now found himself in the graces of Lord Saito, who saw Yukiharu's ability to say the right things at the most opportune moments as a great asset, especially in recruiting for his armies, a very position that would turn around quite well for Yukiharu. He especially was able to relate in the ranks of people who were considered outcasts, and those looked down upon, and those that were displaced. And it appears at around the same time that he gained this favor from Lord Saito, the identifier for said outcast would come to grow. Yukiharu, who is now going by the moniker of the Snake, was starting to frequent opium dens in Osaka. This would be the moment that seemingly would trigger a lifelong addiction to opium in an effort to self-medicate as his body only continued to cause him more pain and discomfort. The only major contrast between his rise in the graces of Lord Saito and where he's at in the story of Ghost of Yotei seems that he does actually become quite adept in swordsmanship, a skill he could have picked up from Lord Saito and the other Yotei 6 members. Unlike the Oni, who we know fought at the Battle of Nagashino, most likely alongside Lord Saito, the Kitsune, and the Saito brothers, it's safe to say the Snake would have had a place in that same fight as well, only solidifying his swordsmanship over time thanks to the powerful and aggressive allies he would have had. I've touched on this in the previous video comparing Jin and Atsu. It's even more important to emphasize that point here. Atsu, apart from Clan Matsumai and the varying levels of hope within their capabilities to effectively fight Lord Saito, is the only one seemingly to bring effective resistance to the Yotei 6. More empowering is her slaying the Snake. Regardless of his position within the Six's hierarchy and the level of respect he did or didn't command, there's many signs pointing out how powerful any defiance is. When Atsu kills the first Saito outlaw, the rest of them stand back amazed, most likely due to a combination of a single person who isn't a samurai willing and able to kill one of them, no less a woman. It's also later revealed that Atsu has no official formal training. A little speculation here, this is not official, but if that information alone was to leak out, along with the ever-growing number of Saito clan samurai dying or even Saito outlaws dying that appear to be not as well equipped, this would have been scandalous, legendary. This alone would have marked her as both a folklore hero and a demon, depending of course on who tells the story. It's the myth that would have billed the Ghost of Yotei by itself, but considering the village members physically seeing her get stabbed, stand up and walk away, it all becomes this legendary notion that completely explodes. A fascinating part of the Ghost games is there's a level of history tied into it, and by 1603, Ezo was not yet fully under Japanese control. A very important fact, as it's the primary driving force behind Lord Saito doing his best to seize control of Ezo to effectively lock the shogun out, and claim this as his own domain, as he's later referred to as the Shogun of the North. But what I'm getting at here is it was considered a frontier land, home to the Ainu and a small number of Japanese settlers. The only recognized samurai authority was the Matsumai clan, who would have held exclusive trading and military rights granted by Tokugawa Ieyasu, which would have been a real historical figure. If the clan of Saito is the occupying force on the island, their control would be near absolute, essentially a feudal stronghold acting like a colonial government. Their samurai would be trained, disciplined, and battle-hardened. Killing one would be unthinkable for a peasant or even a commoner. Killing multiple, that would spread like wildfire through rumor, awe, and terror. Taking out their commanders, now you can easily understand why this becomes more of a mythical figure. Introducing Atsu's origins of the daughter of a legendary blacksmith that was killed, with his entire family being slaughtered and the original house deemed as a place that was haunted, the reputation becomes fearful and doubtful. Many throughout the game would refer to her as the one that killed the snake, the origin of her story. With the game's progression switching, some people would refer to her as the snakes, the onis, or the kitsune's killer. Whichever they would come to refer to her as, there is no doubting that the killing of the snake was the turning point within Atsu's own resolve. The snake is the first of Atsu's childhood monsters she comes back to face. For 16 years, she's trained, fought, and survived battles across mainland Japan just to make sure she was ready for this very mission. But time changes things. Distance, and fueled by anger and hatred, affects people in ways they don't always understand or see coming. When you're in the very presence of the person that you thought so much about and you hate so much with every fiber of your being, commit yourself to this mission of guaranteeing they're met with the same fate they met you with so long ago. It becomes very different when you're in the personal presence of that very person. Atsu seeing the snake all over again after all these years makes everything real in that very way that she wasn't prepared for. As I said, that explains why we see the visions of her returning to fighting the snake under her family's burning ginkgo tree and shouting that she's not afraid of him. Because defeating him isn't just about revenge, it's about breaking the image she's carried since she was a child, and arguably is why he's so important for her own personal mission. His death means they are immortal, that they can bleed, that can die, and that she's capable of actually doing what she set out to do. If you stood this far into the video, thank you. I greatly appreciate it, as well as all the kind words expressed on my last video. In case you didn't know, I'm in the middle of recovering from a car accident, followed by getting hit with an insanely horrible flu a day or two after the car accident. I think it's COVID because my symptoms are the exact same as when I got COVID, which was just intense fatigue followed by this very specific cough. But that's just a hunch. I haven't been tested. And honestly, at this point, I think it's the sickness that has been kicking my ass more than the actual wreck itself. Overall, though, I'm in good health and just wanted to say thank you to everyone that has checked in, as well as providing a little bit of an explanation on the lack of uploads or even the lack of energy you may be picking up on in the videos. Hoping that in another day or two I'll be 100%. I've been saying that for the last week, but we'll see. Regardless, big thank you to everyone. It really does mean a lot, and a special shout out to all the patrons and members here on the channel, from John Cooper, Conkin, Mr. Natty Priest, Daniel Homan, and Seagood. If you would like to check the Patreon out and support the channel by just going the little extra mile with some extra content on the side, then feel free to do so. The link is down below.